For decades, the U.S. dollar has enjoyed an unparalleled status as the world's primary reserve currency. Its dominance has allowed the United States to borrow at low costs, influence global trade, and maintain economic leverage unmatched by any other nation. But cracks are beginning to appear. Rising geopolitical tensions, massive U.S. debt, and the emergence of alternative financial systems have emboldened other nations to explore ways to reduce their reliance on the dollar. Countries like China, Russia, and members of the European Union are quietly developing and promoting alternative currencies to challenge the dollar's supremacy. The Chinese yuan, backed by massive economic growth and a growing network of trade agreements, is being positioned as a global competitor. Simultaneously, Russia has turned to gold-backed financial instruments and bilateral trade agreements in local currencies to bypass the dollar, signaling a broader shift in the international monetary system. Even new digital currencies, including state-backed central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, are gaining traction as tools for cross-border trade that do not depend on the U.S. financial system. These initiatives are not only about convenience. They represent a strategic challenge to American economic power. Nations that diversify away from the dollar reduce Washington's ability to impose sanctions or exert influence through the global banking system. As the world becomes more multipolar, the rise of these alternative currencies represents a slow but significant threat to U.S. dominance. What was once a near-absolute monopoly is now being questioned, with nations quietly testing financial alternatives that could reshape global economics. The anti-dollar alliance is not a sudden upheaval. It is a calculated, gradual, and increasingly coordinated effort to redraw the global monetary map. The decline of the U.S. dollar's absolute dominance isn't just an economic story, it's deeply political. For decades, the dollar has served as a tool of U.S. foreign policy, allowing Washington to impose sanctions, influence trade, and maintain leverage over countries that rely heavily on the dollar for global transactions. But as geopolitical tensions rise, many nations are reconsidering their dependence on the greenback. Russia and China are leading the charge. After facing extensive U.S. sanctions, Russia aggressively moved to create a financial system that bypasses the dollar, relying instead on local currencies and gold-backed transactions. Meanwhile, China is promoting the yuan in global trade agreements and building infrastructure, like the Belt and Road Initiative, that encourages other nations to settle transactions in its currency. This is not merely economic diversification. It is a strategic challenge aimed at reducing Washington's global leverage. Other nations, from Middle Eastern oil exporters to developing countries in Africa and Asia, are also quietly exploring alternatives. Some are forming regional currency blocks, while others are investing in gold or adopting digital currencies that operate outside U.S. dominated banking networks. These moves allow countries to insulate themselves from sanctions, political pressures, and the unpredictable swings of the dollar. The push against the dollar is subtle but growing. While the greenback remains dominant today, its monopoly is weakening. Economists warn that if these trends continue, the dollar may no longer be able to serve as the world's uncontested reserve currency. This geopolitical shift could fundamentally alter global trade patterns, U.S. influence, and the way countries manage wealth and power in the 21st century. The anti-dollar alliance is more than a financial initiative. It is a carefully coordinated geopolitical effort to redistribute global economic power and challenge the long-standing supremacy of the United States. As countries actively seek to reduce their reliance on the U.S. dollar, new financial hubs and alternative currencies are emerging to challenge the global status quo. The rise of the Chinese yuan, for instance, is central to this movement. China has steadily promoted the yuan through trade agreements, cross-border investment deals, and the development of the digital yuan. Unlike traditional banking systems dominated by the dollar, the digital yuan offers the ability to conduct international settlements without going through U.S. controlled networks like SWIFT. This gives participating countries greater financial autonomy and reduces exposure to potential sanctions. Beyond China, regional currency initiatives are gaining traction. The euro has long been Europe's answer to dollar dependence. But the European Union is now exploring deeper integration of financial systems to strengthen the euro's global reach. Similarly, countries in the Middle East are conducting more oil trades in local currencies or gold, while some African nations are experimenting with Pan-African digital currencies to facilitate intracontinental trade. Financial hubs are also shifting. Cities like Shanghai, Dubai, and Singapore are positioning themselves as alternatives to New York and London, offering global investors access to markets that operate outside dollar dominance. These hubs provide a mix of financial services, trading infrastructure, and political neutrality, making them attractive for countries seeking to diversify reserves or hedge against U.S. influence. The emergence of alternative currencies and financial centers is more than an economic adjustment. It represents a strategic redistribution of power. While the dollar remains dominant today, these shifts indicate a future where global trade and finance may no longer revolve solely around Washington's influence. The anti-dollar alliance is quietly reshaping the global monetary order, setting the stage for a multipolar currency system in the decades to come. The shift away from the U.S. dollar is not just an economic phenomenon. It carries profound geopolitical implications. As countries diversify their reserves and trade in alternative currencies, Washington's traditional leverage over global finance diminishes. For decades, the dollar has been a tool of U.S. foreign policy. Sanctions, trade restrictions, and financial oversight have allowed the U.S. to exert influence worldwide without deploying military forces. But as nations adopt non-dollar systems, this strategic advantage begins to erode. For example, countries facing U.S. sanctions, like Iran and Russia, have increasingly relied on barter systems, local currencies, or gold-backed settlements to maintain trade. These workarounds reduce the effectiveness of American financial pressure and signal to other nations that alternatives are possible. Likewise, alliances such as the BRICS nations are actively promoting dollar alternatives, strengthening trade networks that operate independently of Western financial dominance. This shift also challenges the stability of U.S. global influence. Military might alone cannot dictate economic relationships. Financial autonomy is now equally critical. As nations strengthen economic ties outside dollar-based systems, the U.S. may find it harder to shape global policy in its favor. Moreover, a multi-currency world introduces volatility. Exchange rates, liquidity, and global trade flows may become more fragmented, demanding a re-evaluation of long-standing international agreements and partnerships. In essence, the anti-dollar alliance is gradually transforming the international order. The dollar's supremacy, long taken for granted, is increasingly contested. While the transition will be gradual, its consequences could reshape diplomacy, trade, and geopolitical strategy for decades. The era of unquestioned U.S. monetary dominance is fading, and nations around the world are quietly preparing for a future where economic sovereignty no longer depends on the greenback. As the anti-dollar alliance gains momentum, the future of global finance is poised for dramatic change. A world where the U.S. dollar no longer dominates trade and reserves would be fundamentally different, introducing both opportunities and challenges for nations, corporations, and individuals alike. Countries increasingly investing in alternative currencies, digital yuan, or gold-backed systems are signaling the possibility of a multipolar financial world. This could reduce systemic reliance on U.S. monetary policy, giving emerging economies more control over their fiscal destinies. For multinational corporations, a post-dollar landscape would require adapting to multiple payment systems, hedging strategies, and currency risks, potentially increasing operational complexity, but also diversifying financial exposure. For investors, new opportunities could arise in non-dollar assets, including regional currencies, commodities, and blockchain-based financial instruments. Meanwhile, the U.S. faces a strategic challenge, maintaining global influence while its currency loses some of its universal dominance. Policymakers may need to rethink monetary strategy, international agreements, and financial diplomacy to retain leverage in a multipolar system. Ultimately, the rise of the anti-dollar alliance signals a slow but inevitable decentralization of global finance. The dollar will not disappear overnight, but its role as the unchallenged anchor of the international monetary system is fading. Nations and institutions that anticipate these shifts, diversify their reserves, and adapt to emerging financial networks will be best positioned to navigate the complexities of a post-dollar world. The era of single currency dominance is ending, and a more fragmented, multipolar financial order is emerging on the global stage.